What's going on, everybody? Today, as you can see, we're going to have a look at gustar and similar verbs. And what I mean by that is, gustar is like the famous one. Me gusta, te gusta, le gusta. And so there's other verbs that are going to also be used in the same way. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like. And then we're going to do some examples at the end. And so as you can see here, I have sort of mapped out the indirect object pronouns, the indirect object nouns, right? And then you're going to see sort of locking that onto the sentence. And I'll show you what that means over there. But you also see this, there is a lesson on indirect object nouns and pronouns if you're still sort of wondering what that is. So if you need to, check that one out. But I also put over here a whole bunch of examples, or some examples, because there's many, many more. But so that this wasn't an overwhelming lesson, I wanted to give you some examples of other verbs that are, similar to gustar. And then I'm going to focus on gustar. In fact, that's what I'm going to do first, so you can understand the concept. And then, as I've already said, we're going to finish with some practice. And as always, you can check the description box for how-tos and explanations and other practice. And of course, when we get to this point, if you want to hit the pause button, go for it, and then hit play, and and you can check your answers with us. And so, like I said, I want to begin with just a quick rundown of the indirect object nouns and pronouns, because that's what's also used with gustar. And so, nothing has changed in that regard. I just thought it was worth putting up. And so we have me, te, le, nos, os, les, right? And then their corresponding indirect object nouns are right here, right? And so the one that is always sort of doesn't fall in line with, for example, you don't have a jo, you have a mi. And then likewise here, you don't have a tu, you have a ti. But the rest really just sort of follow suit, and the rest follow, what you would expect them to do. And again, like I said, this was covered in indirect object nouns and pronouns, but because gustar and its similar verbs deal with that, it's worth mentioning, right? And so, as I said, you have me, te, le, nos, os, les, right? And so this is, I guess I put it front and center just so I could, be clear about how these are used and why they're different from, what you've learned in terms of conjugating verbs. Like, for example, conjugating a verb, yo hablo español, right? Or tú bebes mucho café, right? For example, that's just the present tense, but that's subject-verb agreement, subject-verb agreement. Gustar and similar verbs aren't going to work that way. And this can be confusing at first, because you're going to want to say, for example, yo gusto, and then whatever. And it's not to say that gustar can't be conjugated like a normal AR verb. However, this structure is going to be different, right? And that's what I'm going to show you, and that's what's going to be different, as I said, than say the subject-verb agreement that you're pretty much used to at this point. With something like gustar, because it really translates, for example, me gusta estudiar, or me gusta la playa, for example. I'm going to use this one. Me gusta la playa. Now, in English, you would say, I like the beach, right? But it doesn't, as you can see, it doesn't translate that cozily into I like the beach. In fact, maybe a better way to translate it is the beach. Let's spell that right. The beach is pleasing to me. Now that is reading that from this direction this way, and that would be backwards to how you're used to reading a sentence, of course, right? Especially for you, the English speakers, right? And so, but that might be a good way to wrap your head around it out of the gates. And so, what I mean by that is this, and I'm going to explain this a little more, over here. But just since we're front and center, I'm going to show you right here. So we have me gusta la playa. Now it's gusta, not because it's yo, because yo would be gusto, of course, right? It's gusta, it's third person singular, because it's agreeing actually with la playa, which is a third person singular noun, right? Direct object noun. And so that's why it's gusta. If it were the beaches, let's just make it plural for fun. Las playas, let's say, I like the beaches of Nicaragua, for example. You would say, me gustan las playas, and then of course, de Nicaragua, right? That's shorthand for Nicaragua. And so, me gustan las playas. So it went plural. This went plural because of this. And so really, what you're dealing with gustar and similar verbs, if you haven't figured it out, is you're really only concerned with third person singular and third person plural, as far as conjugations are concerned. Because it's really only concerning itself with whether or not the direct object noun is singular or if it's plural. If it's singular, you conjugate this in the third person singular. If it's plural, you conjugate it in the third person plural. The only other one that I want to mention is if an infinitive is used. And you'll actually only use the third person singular for that. And so, again, just to reiterate, when it comes to conjugating gustar and similar verbs, these over here, you're in terms of this structure, you're only concerned with if it's singular or plural third person. And that's what's going to determine how you conjugate the end of that verb, right? And how do you know if it's singular or plural? Well, that is the direct object noun. In this case, it's what is pleasing to me, because I am the indirect object pronoun. So I'm indirectly being pleased by the beaches, if that makes any sense, right? And so let's have a look at this, and hopefully I can clarify and even simplify it in a way that sounds less jargony, I guess you might say. And so I want to bring you over here to these examples that I have. And I've put 3 examples up, and then I want to go and look at the different other variations of, the similar verbs, let's just say that, right? And so, but here I have gustar, and notice I have singular, I have plural, and then again, here I have singular. Those are the only 2 options. And so I want to use these examples to hopefully explain that to you all. So number 1 is, and I even wrote them right here. Number 1 is a mí, right? Because, and this is extremely redundant, by the way. You are literally saying, to me, the food is pleasing to me, right? It is redundant. So do you have to have a mí? No, you don't have to. I'm putting it there so you can see the full sentence, right? In fact, I'll go ahead and put it in parentheses for some of you who are like, well, if I don't need it, why is it there? It's just, again, I want to show you its corresponding indirect object noun with its corresponding indirect object pronoun. So, anyways, let's get back to this. A mí me gusta la comida. Why is gusta singular, right? Why is it not gusto? Because, again, we're saying I like the food, right? Well, because this, gusta, is agreeing with this, la comida, which is the direct object noun. It is what is doing the pleasing, if you will. And so because la comida is singular, this must be singular because it's agreeing with this. They are agreeing with one another. This, as I said, and I've marked it here, the indirect object pronoun, me. So this is the to whom or for whom it is pleasing, right? And so la comida, right, is singular third person. This must be singular third person. And then this is telling you the to whom or for whom it is pleasing. So a mí me gusta la comida. So that's effectively saying the food is pleasing to me, or I like the food. Now, if I wanted to say the food is pleasing to you, I would do this. A ti te gusta la comida. I don't say tu gustas la comida. You wouldn't do that. You would say a ti te gusta la comida. So the change in who it is pleasing happens right here in the indirect object pronoun, right? Let's look at number 2. A ti te gustan los zapatos. So why is it gustan this time? Well, because los zapatos are plural third person. So gustan has to agree with that. So te gustan los zapatos. Now, who are these shoes pleasing to? Well, that would be te, or you. So do you like the shoes, right? You could even use it in a question. A ti te gustan los zapatos, right? Do you like the shoes? And that's how you would do that. And so now, if we wanted to say he likes the shoes, or the shoes are pleasing to him, we would just do a él le gustan los zapatos. We don't say él gusta los zapatos. Remember, the change with the to whom or for whom is going to happen right here, right? So it'd be le gustan los zapatos. So this is going to still say plural, even though we're saying he, because this, as I've said, is agreeing with that. And so now the third one is using, if you want to use an infinitive with this. I've showed you how to use a singular noun, a plural noun, but what if we want to say, I like to study, or studying is pleasing to me? That's an infinitive, right? And so when you use an infinitive, you're going to conjugate gustar or its similar verb in the singular third person. You're not going to do it in the plural. So it would be, a nosotros nos gusta tomar café. So drinking coffee is pleasing to us, right? Again, this is the to whom or for whom. So it is pleasing to drink coffee, right? Or to drink coffee, to read it, backwards, is pleasing to us, right? And so again, just to reiterate, gusta is conjugated singular third person because we have the use of an infinitive right there, tomar café. And so hopefully that made sense. We're going to finish off with some examples. But first, I just want to run through some of the similar verbs, or some of the similar verbs, I should say. And just pronounce them for you and tell you what they mean. And again, keep in mind, they're used the same way, right, as what we've done here with gustar. So we have aburrir, which is to bore, alegrar, to make happy, costar, to cost, right, doler, to hurt, right, and we have that example right there. I'll show you how to use that. Encantar is to delight, like, for example, me encanta esta clase de español. I am enjoying this Spanish class. Me encanta esta clase de español. And clase de español is singular, so it would be me encanta with an e, right? Because it's third person singular. So me encanta esta clase de español. Faltar is to lack or to miss, right? You could say, me falta una clase, like I'm missing one class, right? For example, and it would be me falta una clase, because it'd be falta because it's una clase, it's third person, right? Fascinar is to fascinate. Fastidiar is to bother or annoy, right? Hacer falta is to lack or miss, right? And then you have importar is to be important to. Me importa estudiar español porque quiero poder hablar con mis amigos. It's important to me to study Spanish so I can talk to my friends. Me importa estudiar español porque quiero poder hablar con mis amigos. Me importa estudiar. Third person singular, estudiar, infinitive, right? Interesar is to interest. Molestar is to bother. Parecer is to seem, right? Preocupar is to worry about. Quedar is to lack or remain. Sobrar is to be left over. Like, me sobra mucha comida. There's a lot of food left over. Me sobra mucha comida, right? And then last but not least, tocar, which is to be responsible for or to need to do. Like, I need to study, for example. Me toca estudiar, right? And I know that's sort of a loose translation, but that's what I put here, to be responsible for or to need to do, for example. So, again, I want to finish off with some examples, and hopefully that'll make sense of everything. And again, if you want to pause, do these on your own. We'll be here doing these when you come back. So just hit play when you're ready, and we'll be here. And so for the rest of us, we're going to go ahead and get started. A él, right? So that's telling you what the noun is. So what's its corresponding noun, right? The corresponding noun to a él would be le. So we would put le here. And then we have an infinitive, and so that means this needs to be third person singular. So, toca. A mí, right? That's our indirect object noun, a mí, and then you would put me, and then you have tus ojos, so your eyes fascinate me. So that's third person plural. So that's fascinan, right? Because this is agreeing with this. And so, again, toca is third person singular because it's the infinitive. And so, let's finish up with these. A ti, right? We have that right here. So you would put te, costar, hablar inglés. So we have an infinitive here. So we would put cuesta. Now keep in mind, that's an O to UE stem change. So again, of course, that still has to happen as well. It's because you're conjugating it. A usted, right? We have usted here. Third person singular, right? So a usted le duelen los pies, right? Because this is third person plural. This has to agree with it, third person plural, right? Again, this is agreeing with this because this is the indirect object noun, indirect object pronoun, verb agreeing with direct object noun, third person plural. Lastly, we have a nosotros, which is right here, right? And so its corresponding pronoun would be nos. We have jugar deportes, we have encantar, so I enjoy playing sports. Again, you have an infinitive here, so it would be encanta, right? Third person singular. And so that, again, you have third person singular followed by infinitive. Third person singular followed by infinitive. Third person singular followed by infinitive. Third person plural followed by plural, tus ojos, third person plural followed by third person or plural noun. So if it were to be el pie, right, let's just say 1 foot hurts, you would change this and it'd be le duele el pie. That's all you would have to do. And so this really concludes gustar and similar verbs. And so hopefully that helped to make sense of how to do this new or different structure when it comes to using some of these verbs. And so hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for watching, and adios.